I disagree with those who say so. The national policy on education is in tune with the global needs. What is required nowadays in the world is functional education. As I said earlier, our problem is implementation. We have many things that we have proposed that have been accepted by government, but when it comes to implementation, because of lack of funds, in most cases, you see, we are not able to implement them. A science allowance was agreed upon many, many years ago, and all the states started paying science allowance. A few years after, they now reduce it to you pay the science allowance if somebody is in a rural area. They say, oh, those of you who are in the cities, you don't need science allowance because the people in the rural areas, they are making some sacrifice and all that. That was how the whole thing went down. And many states stopped paying the science allowance. Even at a time, the federal government was not paying. Many people don't appreciate the situation. We have so many teachers in the country. And when you now want to develop any project that involves teachers, how many of them can you take? We have thousands of teachers. Will you not go and bring 100 teachers to come and do? No. From our knowledge experience, if you want to develop a curriculum, for instance, you need no more than 10 people to do the basic work, the development. You call a workshop, there will be about 10 people, they will brainstorm and put down something.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is another episode of the Education Podcast by EduCeleb. I'm your host, EduCeleb, and joining me in the discussion today is Professor Udogie Ivowi, popularly known as Professor UMO Ivowi, a former Executive Secretary of the National Educational Research Development Council, NERDC, in Nigeria. And we'll be looking into some issues in relation to education in Nigeria as always. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So let's start with the issue of education plan in Nigeria. What would you say is the state of education plan in Nigeria today?
Well, I would say that planning in education, as of now, there are issues that have not been properly planned for. And one will say that looking forward, we have a roadmap that was prepared for education some years ago. And that roadmap is still existing. What remains is for the roadmap to be implemented. There are developments, there are problems with regards to its implementation. Otherwise, we still have a plan, a roadmap for education in Nigeria.
So some would try to suggest that or imply that the education policy in Nigeria is not in line with the current needs of the world, the current global needs. What do you have to say about that?
I disagree with those who say so. The national policy on education is in tune with the global needs. What is required nowadays in the world is functional education. As I said earlier, our problem is implementation. We have many things that we have proposed that have been accepted by government, but when it comes to implementation, because of lack of funds, in most cases, you see, we are not able to implement them. That is one. Secondly, the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic has also moved implementation further because you don't need to have face-to-face with your students to be able to teach them. You have to use online, use virtual strategies, which, as you know very well, we haven't reached that stage at all. We have people who are experts in computing and in ICT, but we don't have the fundamental instruments and materials that are required for this to take place in all over the country. Even at the university level, most of the virtual teaching and learning has not actually taken up properly. So implementation is our problem.
Okay. It's clear enough that implementation has always been a problem in almost everything in Nigeria. We know how to plan, we know how to write things on paper. So how do we ensure, what are the measures that should be taken for us to have successful implementation of all these policies that we've had on ground over the years?
Now we need a paradigm shift in terms of implementation. That is, we should develop a political will to run education properly. Over the years, we have not spent more than 7% of national budget on education. And yet the UNESCO had recommended that countries should spend about 26% of their annual budget on education. A few countries in Africa, I'm told, are doing that, but we are very far below. As I said, the highest we have been able to do is 7%.
So going to STEM education, which is your major area of specialization as an academic, what would you say is the state of STEM today, or what they call STEM if they add the arts or agriculture to it? What's the state of it today, and what's the way forward?
Well, the state of STEM, we are just at the beginning. We are sensitizing science teachers in the country. The conference that was held recently by Science Teachers Association of Nigeria dealt with STEM, and we have a good number of science teachers who have already been involved with STEM education, science, technology, engineering, mathematics education. They have been doing that, and adding arts is a different dimension entirely. And what that implies is that both the science teachers and even the arts teachers should be able to teach quite a lot of topics, concepts in both science, in technology, in mathematics, and in arts. It's not an easy thing to do. You can say it easily, but it's not easily doable. That will require team teaching. And when you are doing team teaching, you need to depose more materials. It's not just the teachers alone. You must have sufficient materials for the different teachers, maybe 2 or 3 teachers, will be able to use at any time. And the students that are supposed to learn, they can easily adjust to whatever you teach them. The problem is with the teachers and materials.
While introducing you earlier, I mentioned that you were once the executive secretary of the NERDC. Could you please,
yes,
sir. Could you please share the achievements some of the reforms you were able to put in place while you were there? And perhaps those that are there today can learn from it.
Okay, yeah. Well, when I was the executive secretary of NERDC, that's Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council. Some people call it national. It's not national, it's Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council. Now, I came in at a stage where we had to develop a number of curricula. And at the secondary school level, we had at the primary school level. And so we were able to develop the curricula for secondary education, and all the subjects, both the the pre-vocational subjects, which we had introduced, and the trade subjects that were also introduced in order to make it comprehensive and holistic. We developed them, and then we got to a stage where we needed to revise them, and it was very difficult to revise. Then we started with the senior secondary school, the revision, and biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics. We then did the languages, French, we did French, we did English, and we were going to do the Nigerian languages at the time I left. But since then, they have done the Nigerian languages, the 3 main Nigerian languages. There are other languages, the 9 Nigerian languages, whose orthographies we had earlier developed. They now have curricula in different subjects in those languages. That is translating the curriculum in other language in English to Nigerian languages, Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa in particular. The others have been done, but I don't know now how far they have gone. But we did all that, we started with all that. Now, the pilot schools we had, which we were visiting, running workshops to them, those workshops are no longer going on because there's no fund to run those workshops. But the curricula are there, and the desensitization workshops we are done in our time. But right now, there isn't much in that area. But the materials are there. They just revised the curricula a few years ago.
That would have taken us to the next question I wanted to ask you. If I addressed it a little bit in what you just said about the indigenous languages. Do you think the indigenous languages will sufficiently teach STEM if we start using them to teach STEM?
You mean whether our teacher will be able to do that?
Our indigenous languages, would they be sufficient in teaching STEM? All this, I mean, when they produce contents in Yoruba, produce the biology book in Yoruba, the physics in Hausa, would it sufficiently teach students as much as English would do?
Yes, it will, because late Professor Fafuwa did a study on the use of Nigerian languages, particularly Yoruba, in teaching. And he discovered that students will learn better. They will gain more if you teach them in their first languages, that is, you teach them in their native language. English is second language to us. And so, research-wise, yeah, it's possible. And we've now developed scientific and technical terms in Nigerian languages for those 3 subjects, in 3 languages we started with, and we developed them for the 9 languages. But after we developed them and the books were published, I don't think we have done anything further with them. We are not using them to teach because nobody is teaching the sciences in Nigerian languages. We are not using Nigerian languages to teach those subjects, and so much has not been done in that area.
Well, it's based on the experience from the 6 years by Professor Fafuwa. We believe that it will work in this entire school system.
Yeah, it will work. If we do it, it will work. Because when we were developing the scientific and technical terms in Nigerian languages, we got many people to help us, and it was not that difficult for them, because in any language, no one language has all the words for everything. You borrow language from other languages, you adapt languages, and then you form new terms. That is what is done everywhere. And we did all that for the science and technical terms. But it's when you are now using them that you can improve on them. We have not used them to teach the subjects. And so a lot of development will still be needed. We have not reached that stage at all to be doing the teaching. We provided the materials, but no one is using them.
So, and there is a recent move by the federal government to appreciate teachers by introducing some incentives, increasing the number of years. And in the case of student teachers, those are studying education in universities or colleges of education, pay them some stipends per semester, as we call it, and all those sort of things like that. How do you think this is? So, do you think this is sustainable, and how do you think that this should be done?
Well, my first reaction is that if this can be done, it will be nice. It will improve things. But based on my experience in Nigeria, I doubt if half of them will even be done. If we do half, to even sustain those half will be difficult. Look, a science allowance was agreed upon many, many years ago. And all the states started paying science allowance. A few years after, they now reduce it to you pay the science allowance if somebody is in a rural area. They say, oh, those of you who are in the cities, you don't need science allowance because the people in the rural areas, they are making some sacrifice and all that. That was how the whole thing went down. And many states stopped paying the science allowance. Even at the time, the federal government was not paying science allowance. So unless we are determined to improve these things in this direction, that is what I mean by the political will. We don't have sufficient political will to do things in education. Until we develop that, I don't see how these things will work. They may be started, but even to maintain them will be very difficult. Because already I'm aware that they say some people are saying, why do this for education alone? Why not do it for others? So that is a first stage of obstacles that will be in the way. Because those who will implement are not necessarily those in education. The civil servants and the rest of them, once they do not follow it through, then the whole thing may die down. But there are some, for instance, the age of retirement and all, that is very simple and it's easy to do. But these allowances, I suspect that when they start paying, they may not pay it all, and it may not be sustained. Based on what we have experienced in the past, science allowance, for example, it went that way. Initially, they paid, then gradually it couldn't be maintained until it was virtually phased out in a number of places. So that's the problem.
Okay. So is Nigeria doing sufficiently in meeting up with the Sustainable Development Goals vis-a-vis science education?
No, we are not at all. You see, I feel very worried when I see reports. When you see reports on the Sustainable Development Goals, you see that in other countries, they report clearly improvement, advances, what they have done, that they have factors to show that you have made progress, and that while they expected to do so much, this is the percentage of what they have achieved. The thing goes on like that. But when you now come to Nigeria and most African countries, it's still speculation that if we do this, we will get this result. If we do this, we'll get this result. It is good to do this so as to get this result. Those are the things we are doing. It's all speculation. But to do it properly and wait for the result and report the result that you have got on what you have done, I haven't seen it. I've not seen it at all. And I will not be surprised if it's still not available.
One of the things that people always say about Nigerian academia in general is the issue of mentorship. Do you think
issue of
mentorship? Those are experience. How much are they doing to groom the ones that will take over from them? So how can mentorship be improved in the academia?
Well, you see, everything boils out to having facilities. Let me just give you an example. The arrangement for mentorship is still there. We have professors, we have senior lecturers who, when junior lecturers come in, they mentor them. Now, if you have mentored somebody, if you to build him up as a student, and for him to get a doctorate degree, and then you now employ him, to start teaching, how often are you able to send him to attend conferences and workshops? These are not coming up as they used to be. That becomes a problem. And when you look at it, ultimately, it will be reduced to a fund being made available. That is one aspect. Secondly, we also know that many of our lecturers are now, I will use the word, that they are lazy, because research votes which government has provided, NUC and TED Fund, they have shown clearly that when you put a condition, the condition that is put is that if you are given a grant, you must complete that research and submit the report before you can be given another grant. Some years ago, TED Fund reported that the money available for research that has not been assessed because of the condition was much. And what have been collected is less than even 40% over a period, less than 40% of the available grants, which means that people are not able to assess because they are unable to complete the work and report and then get another grant. So there is a problem with the lecturers themselves, apart from money being made available.
And the teachers, sometimes in interaction with many teachers, they feel that they are always left out in all this education planning and development processes. How much do you think teachers, from your experience, how much are teachers involved in educational planning?
Well, you see, teachers are well involved. You see, the problem that we have is this: many people don't appreciate the situation. We have so many teachers in the country. And when you now want to develop any project that involves teachers, how many of them can you take? We have thousands of teachers. Will you not go and bring 100 teachers to come and do? No. Look, from our own experience, if you want to develop a curriculum, for instance, you need no more than 10 people to do the basic work, the development. You call a workshop, there will be about 10 people, they will brainstorm and put down something. Then you now call a group of other 10 people that will join the initial 10. And even among the initial 10, you will not take all of them, maybe 5 of them plus 10 others, making 15, to come and critique what has been drafted. Then when they have done the critique, those 10 people will now go and perfect it. Then the thing is sent to JCC. At JCC, there are many people there. Then all of them cannot be involved in the crucial scrutiny of that curriculum. It's only a few people that be selected. They cannot be more than 12 or so, depending on the number of states that are represented. So when they now come and they do it, and eventually it is brought before the general section of JCC, and it is approved. Well, it is approved by many people, but how many of them were actually involved in the nitty-gritty of the scrutiny of that curriculum? Then, if you are selecting 10 people, okay, look at it. We have 36 states. You cannot even take one from every state. You cannot get at least one person from every state to be involved in the whole process of development. It's not possible. So by the time you finish, if you go to any school, most likely they will tell you that they didn't know anything about it. They were not involved in the development. Yeah, they shouldn't be involved. Why should they be involved? Everybody cannot be involved. When the thing is developed and approved, that is why we run sensitization workshops. You now go and run workshops in different places for different teachers and all that. And it is our sensitization workshop that is important. And that is what they should struggle to do, not to be involved in the initial development, because everybody cannot be involved.
So how much is the Nigerian Academy of Education involved in all this, in the planning and all that?
No, Nigerian Academy of Education sends representative to JCC. Any problem, any project, any issue that is brought to JCC, because JCC up to NCE, the NCE is the highest body in education for policy in Nigeria. And JCC is next to it, and then the different ministries of education and organizations, the NGOs and others, and individuals. So the Nigerian Academy of Education is involved with at JCC and NCE level. So they make contribution at that stage. Otherwise, they are not involved in any other place. The other associations, the professional bodies, STAN, for instance, then the English Teachers Association and different subject associations, they are involved. You know, they send representatives when these things are being developed. The examination bodies, they are involved when these things are being developed. The ministries of education, they are involved. And then people from universities, you know, we have many universities. We cannot take every, as I've told you, only 10 people you need. When you take one from STAN, you take one from academy, you take one from Ministry of Education, you take one from university, you take one from colleges of education, take one from technical colleges. By the time you take this, these are all institutions. You are looking for 10, you've almost got 6. So you will not take about 4 from schools. Selecting only 4 schools in Nigeria. And when we have thousands of schools, you can see the problem. So those who will not be involved, they will look at it, brainstorm, and then make a suggestion. But by the time the thing goes to JCC, we are supposed to get more people there to take part. In those days, we used to have many people because a Ministry of Education, when they are going to JCC, they know that this curriculum is going to be looked at, this one will be looked at in English, in language, in mathematics, in science. They will bring their own people to come along. And When they bring their people, they will serve in that committee. But what is happening nowadays, some years ago, up to now, you don't have many people coming. You have some states, only 2 people will represent the ministry. How can they take part? There are about 8 or 10 committees. How can they take part in those committees? It's not possible. At the Academy of Education, we send only 1 person to represent it. He can only attend 1 committee. He can't attend others. So this is what is going on. In those years, there were some JCC meetings where the Federal Ministry of Education used to fund everything when things were good. They will fund everything. And many states will be able to sell, if they were going to send like 3 people, because the federal government is funding, maybe they get another 2 or 3 in addition. So you will get up to 6 representing 1 ministry. But that is not done nowadays. So we have that problem.
Before we conclude this, the podcast, I'll just like to ask 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay.
So, which first will be about the curriculum organization of Nigeria. What has the curriculum organization of Nigeria been doing to strengthen the education sector? I understand that you've been the president and you've been really involved in the association for several years.
Yes, the curriculum organization of Nigeria, they just held their annual conference in Oyo, Federal College of Education Special at Oyo. That was where it was held this year. The attendance, although was a bit impressive, but not as before, because you have a lot of problem now. People from the East, many of them could not travel to Oyo when it was time for the conference. And even the Work Council for Curriculum and Instruction that just met in Atunsuka this week, that I just ended. Only again, the number of people that were there is far less than our expectation, because many people are afraid the roads are bad, they cannot travel, they are afraid of kidnapping and all that. So, but otherwise, these organizations are still there. CON has continued to, they cannot develop their own curriculum. They have to be invited by NERDC, because NERDC is the body that handles curriculum for government. So they normally invite the curriculum organization. And as I told you, if it is for 1 subject, there is only 1 person that will represent the curriculum organization. So they'll be holding their workshop, they'll be doing research, they'll be writing papers and reporting their research findings and all that. So, and then whatever they are able to do when they are called to curriculum workshops, they are able to contribute, to be contributing.
So before we close, we'll go to your foundation, the Ivowi Educational Foundation. Okay. What are you up to at the moment? What are your programs like?
Yeah, this year I'm going to be 80 in December, and so this year's a public lecture that we normally do, which all the lectures that we've had for the past 25 years. The Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation will give this year's lecture. And his lecture will make it the 25th. We will publish everything. And again, with our usual prizes, we normally give prizes to the students. We've already got the students. They have been taken through the competition, the quiz, and the fair, which the Lagos State branch of Science Teachers Association normally organizes for the foundation. That has been done, and we are just waiting for the 8th of December when we will have the public lecture, and we will now give award to the students who excelled at the competition.
That's interesting. We look forward to the program. May God make everything easy.
Yes, amen. Mm.
So as we close the program, I would just like you to give your closing remarks regarding all we've talked so far.
Yes, we have been saying this, and I continue to say it, that our governments, both federal, states, and local, should develop more sufficient political will to handle the human resources to develop our education properly. But we do not have that political will that will enable the right atmosphere to be created to improve resources, both human and material resources, so that we can improve our education. As I always said, our curriculum is okay. It has been revised a number of times, and it goes with the current trend of making the curriculum functional. But implementation is our problem. It's our problem because unless we have the materials, we cannot implement the curriculum that is supposed to be hands-on. It's not to be taught theoretically, going and lecturing. No, we are supposed to have hands-on. The students who do it is to be done by doing. Science is to be learned by doing, not by hearing. And we have trained teachers to be able to do that. But when they do not have the materials, instead of spending extra time and probably money to do improvisation, they give up. They give up. And so the students are not well taught, the curriculum is not well implemented, and the expectation is not achieved. I hope that government will change and develop more political willingness to do it.
Thank you very much, sir, for having us, sir. So we've been discussing with Professor Udogie Ivowi, a retired professor of science education at the University of Lagos, and I earlier introduced him as the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council, as well as the former president of the Curriculum Organization of Nigeria, among other things. Thank you very much, sir. We hope to speak this some other time.
Thank you.
Good evening. So everyone that has watched this long, we thank you for joining us. Till next time, we keep thanking you.
If you're not constantly investing in them, then you're undoing your organization, because it's better to train them and have them use the skills to work with you for, let's say, 2-3 years, and then they leave for another organization, which you may not like, than for them to stay with you for 10 years and be untrained. Because the truth is, I think one of the fears that managers or school owners have about training is, oh, they'll eventually leave to another school and then I'll lose all the money. Training doesn't have to cost you so much.